Leslie, thank you so much for joining us and helping us to demystify some of these things. Administrative Services, you have a new citation program, and as one commissioner said, it gives you more teeth for enforcement. Could you just kind of explain what this new program is?
Of course. So on May 1st, the Board of County Commissioners approved a code ordinance change for us, and it allows us to do administrative citations. So right now, prior to that code, we were only allowed to do criminal types of citations, which go through a very lengthy process. This is intended to give us just a quick way to maybe address some issues that we would like quick compliance on, things like trash in a yard, vacant lot, cleanups, things of that nature. And those citations can be issued after an immediate warning, and they're per day per offense. So if you have multiple offenses on a property, you could have multiple citations. The first offense is $100, the second offense is $250, and then the third offense goes up to $500.
What prompted this change and prompted that degree of levels of fines and citations?
Sure. You know, one of the complaints that we get from folks in the neighborhoods and from the commissioners is that the length of time it sometimes takes for these things to make their way through the process. And so we were looking at an alternative to try to get things cleaned up more quickly and handled more quickly. I know we mentioned that this is on the code enforcement, but we can also use this in animal control, for example. So we're hoping that this might help us answer things more quickly and get some of our workload off of the books, so things aren't stacked up so far behind.
And many of these types of incidences end up in court then too. Is this going to help alleviate some of your court cases and things like that? And I assume that's a benefit.
Absolutely. So we're hoping that that does help alleviate that process. Obviously, as a homeowner, let's say that you have some trash on your property that needs to be removed. You don't want to go through that lengthy process of, okay, I've been notified, I am unable to comply, and now I find myself in front of a judge. This allows you to hopefully get something taken care of quickly. You do have an appeal process that's a little more quick than a court process as well. So if you believe that you've maybe been cited in error, you have the ability to go to a supervisor who can look at that and see if that's actually correct, or then you can have an administrative hearing. And those things can happen a lot more quicker on that administrative side versus the court side.
And those administrative hearings, are those then your people as opposed to court type people, or who adjudicates that?
Correct. So that first level would be a pro employee, a supervisor, and then we use administrative hearing officers for that second level. So.
Now, what if these citation scofflaws, what if they don't pay?
If they don't pay their citations, obviously those will accumulate, particularly if they haven't corrected the problem. And so we can put a special assessment lien on the property, which we're currently really not able to do. We do put liens, but it's a different type of lien. So we want to make sure that they have the ability to correct the problem. So if they're not correcting the problem, that fine will keep accumulating. Obviously that will be a problem, and we'll put an assessment on their property. But we're not trying to get fines. That's not really what we're trying to do here. We're trying to get compliance and have those code enforcement issues taken care of.
So was this a tool that you guys wanted to put into your tool chest, or was this at the behest of the county commission to try and help some of their neighborhood problems, or a combination of both?
I think it was a combination of both. We're lucky enough to have a new code enforcement manager. His name's Jim Anderson. He came to us from another jurisdiction, and he had a lot of ideas and suggestions, and after speaking with the commissioners, he realized that this might be an opportunity for us to do both of those things, assist the neighborhood who may have a lot of complaints and they didn't see a lot of action happening on those complaints. Obviously, if it takes 8 weeks to get to a judge to try to get something adjudicated, versus if I write you a citation, you might be more likely to handle it in a couple of days, then that's a win-win for everyone.
So far, I think mostly, Leslie, you've been talking about residential and neighbor-to-neighbor type of situations, but this also applies to any of our commercial customers or any other commercial violators as well.
That is correct. It would be anything that's in the realm that code enforcement or animal control oversees.
Give me some examples of how this works. Pick somebody that has broken some sort of law or an ordinance, and just kind of walk me through the procedure of what happens.
Sure. So a recent example is we had some RVs that were left in public right-of-way, and for our old process, we would have had to give them a notice of violation. We would have had to wait 15 days, give them an ability to submit to us some sort of compliance approach, which could be up to 30 days. Obviously, if you've got 20, 25 RVs sitting in the public right-of-way, that's a very long process, and your neighbors are not going to be happy about that, right? This would have given us the opportunity, once we knew who the owner was, to just go right to them, give them a warning. We could write them the citation at that point, and then those fines would have accumulated until such time as they've actually taken care of or complied with our request to remove that violation.
I don't know if you have numbers for all the different types of complaints you have, but kind of tell me about some of your, what are your most typical calls, and what are you citing people for most often?
So right now the hot topic is kind of short-term rentals. We're getting a lot of calls and complaints about that. As our viewers may or may not know, that's not allowed in Clark County proper. Rentals under 31 days are not allowed by our code. That's one of the high areas that we get a lot of complaints about. Vacant properties, so we have trash and debris and even folks living in vacated properties that shouldn't be there. Those are some of our more recent, like, high priority sorts of complaints.
And how big of a problem is it then with some of those vacant properties? Maybe they're bank owned or out of state owned. Does this help tighten up some of those loopholes or give you some more teeth in for some of those people?
It potentially will give us some ability to cite those if we actually know who the violators are. There's some tricks with those vacated properties and actually finding out who the owners are, if it's bank owned, if it's an out-of-state property owner. The great thing about this administrative citation process, however, is it doesn't replace anything we currently have in process, and they kind of can go back and forth. So let's say we start with the citation process and we see that the folks aren't going to comply. We could go into the court process so that it has a little more teeth and you're going down that misdemeanor path. So it's kind of interchangeable. So I think that what's great for the code enforcement employees is it gives them some opportunity to be creative and say, okay, this will help here, or maybe that's not working, so now we need to try this other tool.
Let's go back a little bit to, like you say, the short-term rentals, the Airbnb and other apps that are offering houses or a room for, like you say, they have to be at least for 31 days, and it has to be a technical rental. Do you find that a lot of people are just maybe don't realize they are breaking the law because it's a different law in Clark County than the city of Las Vegas or North Las Vegas or Henderson?
I think that that's an accurate point, and there are different jurisdictions who regulate it differently. And also, I mean, I think you're going on what looks to be a legitimate website, and you would think to yourself as a renter, well, why would they be on here if it's not authorized in the location that I'm renting it? So it's really not the renter per se that's breaking the law, it's the folks that are offering that home up for rental for short-term periods.
And we recently had a chance to ride along with your officers there, and they couldn't be more polite, and they're not heavy-handed. The last thing they're going to do is actually kick somebody out of that rental. They want to go after the owners.
Correct. We want the owners to comply with the rules and regulations that are required in our jurisdiction. So interestingly, that brings up a point: is we've created a new team of code enforcement officers that work from Wednesday to Saturday. We thought that addition of the weekend was really important because obviously that's when most of those rentals are happening. We were getting a number of complaints, and we would have to respond, and we would go out there, and by the time we actually got the complaint and it got through the process, the renter wasn't there anymore, or no one's on the property. So now we kind of have some folks that we know are participating in this activity, and so we're highlighting those areas and sending our folks out on the weekends to talk to people.
And administrative services, I mean, you guys are very much so a reactive agency, so you do rely on the eyes and ears of neighbors and of people that they see something wrong in their neighbor's house or something at a commercial location, right?
Correct. That is actually what we do. We respond to complaints. We don't necessarily create our own complaints. So yes, we request that our folks out there in the community are letting us know when they see things that need to be corrected, and we are happy to send someone out to try to get those things corrected.
How can they contact you?
They can call the code enforcement office. We also have a great website. So if they go to clarkcountynv.gov to the Animal Control and Code Enforcement website, they can get information there. Also, we have Clark County Connect, which they can actually submit a complaint through Clark County Connect.
All right. Well, thank you very much for demystifying and telling us about this new program.
You're welcome.